water rates by New Gen Strategies and Solutions, LLC. So you can come on up now, Eric, at this time.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Thank you, Joe, for the brief introduction of why we're here. My name is Eric Colloquia. I'm a partner with New Gen Strategies and Solutions. Our firm has decades of experience in conducting water and sewer rate studies, not only within the state of Texas, but also nationally. I've been managing water and sewer rate studies for just over 15 years. First thing I want to say, it was a pleasure to work with your staff in providing us the information in order to conduct our study. I have a brief presentation here for you tonight. I'm going to talk about the background of our study and our objectives when conducting the study. I'm going to talk about how we define affordability. One of the key things we looked at was, what does that mean to keep your rates affordable? And the final thing is getting to our rate recommendation, the basis for that recommendation, and the condition of the city's utility fund. As Joe had mentioned, at the beginning of this year, you had a discussion on the utility fund and the condition financially, the condition of the fund. Earlier this year, the utility fund did not have any funding for planned capital improvement projects. That's replacing pipes, replacing meters, fixing emergencies, fixing leaks. The utility fund had zero funding for that in this 2025 fiscal year. At the end of this fiscal year, the end of this month, essentially, it is forecasted that the utility fund will have a operating budget deficit of $5.5 million. That is $5.5 million that you had to spend that you didn't generate in revenue. The capital fund deficit will be just over $8 million. So combined, somewhere in the range of $13 million deficit at the end of this fiscal year. The general fund does not have the resources to fund these deficits. And in general, as the discussion had happened previously, our perspective is the utility fund needs to be entirely self-supporting. No city taxes should go to the general fund, or excuse me, to the utility fund to support the water and wastewater operations. Our study is based on that assumption. However, because of the situation in the utility fund since the beginning of this year, $7.6 million has come from the general fund to support the utility fund's capital projects, because those funds were not available in the utility fund. This money will not be repaid. None of the rates that we are recommending is going to repay that $7.6 million. We are just looking at bringing the utility fund current and sustainable. As Joe mentioned, the Attorney General filed its lawsuit earlier this year in February, and that lawsuit was, again, focused on the operation, particularly of the wastewater system. And I think Joe provided a great background of what's needed there. So what were our objectives? You engaged us to look specifically at your water and sewer utility funds. We need to spend the money to run and replace and rehabilitate these systems. So our study is based on this fiscal year 26 budget, with costs increasing at least from previous costs, the most recent CPI reports, which is 5.3%. It is a reality that your costs are going to be increasing in the future, and we've accounted for that. We need to demonstrate that your rates enable you to continue to meet the capital needs of particularly the wastewater system. We need to demonstrate that you are generating the money to be able to do this relative to the Attorney General's lawsuit. I mentioned the utility fund is in a deficit. We want to bring that deficit not only to zero, but to a reasonable minimum fund balance. This is essentially your savings account. Right now, you don't even have zero savings. You have negative fund balance. We want to bring that up over a period of time. These rates allow you to do that over a period. We must ensure that essential water use remains affordable for your community. So we looked at that as a particular analysis when making this recommendation. And again, this is a balancing act. These things are in competition with each other, and we tried to look at it from all sides. When we look at local affordability, we have to define what service we're talking about. We're talking about what is called in the industry essential or basic service. This is indoor water use. This is cooking, cleaning, bathing, things like that. We define that as 3,500 gallons per month, which for your typical household size in here in Port Arthur is about 43 gallons per person per day. That's essential water use. The industry has a framework in which we evaluate affordability. There's two components to that. The first is called the Household Burden Indicator. That is what percent, in terms of dollars, does that basic service cost an individual that is in the lowest 20% income bracket? How much are these households spending on water and wastewater service as a percentage of their income? That's one of the factors we looked at. The other is called the Poverty Prevalence Indicator. Looking at your entire service area, what percentage of households are at or below 200% of the federal poverty line? And that influences our evaluation of the impact of your water rates on your community as a whole. This table here shows both the Poverty Prevalence Indicator and the Household Burden Indicator. Because of Port Arthur's Poverty Prevalence Indicator, you will always be in this greater than 35% box here, meaning whatever rates you charge are going to be in the moderate to high burden category, simply because of the economic profile of your service area. So in doing our study, we wanted to keep you in that moderate high burden and not increase that burden to the high burden, which is above 10%. Which is above 7%. We wanted to keep the cost for this class of customers, for this group of customers, below that 7% target. And therefore, keeping you in this bottom box here, moderate to high burden. The second affordability metric we looked at, because we know the Attorney General is going to be looking at this, is a statewide comparison. The Texas Municipal League does a water and wastewater rate survey each year, and they publish this survey, and that using that survey, we know what a typical user pays across the state for 5,000 gallons a month of water and sewer service. What we do with our analysis is compare your cost at that level with the statewide average. Where do you fall? Do you fall above or below the statewide average for service at 5,000 gallons per month? Which leads me to our rate recommendation. Given the fundamental reality of the utility fund being in a $13 million deficit and a almost $800,000 operating deficit, cash flow wise, right? Your current budget is going to be deficient about $800,000. What this recommendation does is generate revenues sufficient to meet your operating and capital expenses. It brings the fund to meeting those expenses through rates only. No support from city taxes, no support from other outside revenues. We include $3 million per year for emergencies. These are things that you do not plan for. These are when pipes break in the street and you have to go out there and fix them to keep your system running. We've included that in addition to your operating budget. We will eliminate the operating fund budget within 3 years. This rate increase does not get you a positive operating fund at the end of fiscal year 26. It moves you towards positive, but it doesn't get you there. It will take you 3 years to get you there. And as a reminder, that's the $5.5 million. It takes you 3 years to recover that deficit of $5.5 million. However, it eliminates the capital fund deficit of over $8 million. You do that with new debt. This assumes you issue new debt in the next fiscal year to satisfy that $8 million deficit. And you also issue $10 million of additional debt on top of that to begin demonstrating the capital, that you are meeting the capital needs of your system. So with that fiscal year 26 increase of 20%, we are moving towards bringing the operating revenues to meet the needs of the system, and we are eliminating the capital deficit. And we are demonstrating that we are spending $10 million on this system in an effort to alleviate the issues brought up in the lawsuit. Looking forward, I know we're discussing just 2026. 2026 is not the end of the story when it comes to operating and owning this system. We're anticipating that there will be a minimum need in fiscal year 27 of 5.7%. Again, that's a minimum, and that is subject to many different things, particularly the lawsuit with the state's attorney. That's still in flux, and I'm sure Joe will have some background of what that may look like in the future. However, from our analysis, including $10 million additional would require that increase next year. However, tonight we're just talking about that initial 20%. All that does is get you out of your existing deficit. This slide shows the resulting dollar impact on your customer of that 20% increase. This top table shows the monthly water and sewer bill for that essential service level, 3,500 gallons per month. Currently, that customer pays $74 per month, approximately $74 per month. This 5.6% increase was the rate increase that you adopted earlier this year in April. The additional 20% rate increase in fiscal year 26 would be a monthly impact on that customer of $14.87 per month. You can see within the local affordability evaluation, this maintains your rates for this essential level of service within that moderate high burden category, which again is the minimum category that you can meet with any rate. The current statewide average bill compared to the Port Arthur bill at 5,000 gallons per month of service, your bill is currently about 13% less for that customer when compared to the statewide average. Under the 20% rate increase scenario, we estimate that you would be within about 1% less of that statewide average. This rate increase in 2026, allows you not only to satisfy the current deficits in the system, but to begin demonstrating that you are building in the capacity to fund future improvements. And that is all I have. I welcome any questions.
All right. Councilmember Kinlaw.
Okay, thank you. And you said about $14, $15. Go back to that
I know
slide.
this is the only slide anybody cares about. Yes.
Yeah, of course. So about $14, $15 to impact to a household. And just for clarity, this council, this is a difficult situation for this council, but we inherited this from previous government, right? It just didn't happen in the last 5 years. It was a buildup over at least 9 years, right?
Those resulting deficits are built up over time, correct?
Right. So this is a very difficult situation and hard situation for me personally, because I did question you about some things and the exact about making sure that we're comparing apples to apples and not oranges to apples. Okay, and we understand that we have a lot of elderly individuals in this community. So I just wanted that for the record to be stated. It just didn't happen over the last 5 years. It took a long time to build up where that we have to make a decision like this. And because of this lawsuit, our hands are tied, basically.
Right, and I'm glad you mentioned the senior discount, because I forgot to mention that.
Right.
We are also increasing the senior discount proportional with the rate increase. So those customers, the discount that they receive will increase as the rates increase under our analysis. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for clarifying that.
Councilmember Doucette.
Eric, thank you. And I'm going to say the same comment for Joe. I think we should have brought you before today so the customers would have known all this information. I think we'd have moved on farther. And that's something, lessons learned for council. So I won't be around, but next year when we start talking your water utilities, we need to bring it forward. But let me break this down to layman terms. The difference between what you presented today and what I've been hearing for the last 3-4 years, the difference is the risk of burden, okay? No one ever talked about risk of burden. Well, we've been getting, citizens been hearing, we need to have this amount every year for the next 10 years, for the next 20 years. But your race was based upon the median income of this particular city, not other cities, okay? And you're not talking about what happened. You're telling us, I'm going to put y'all up at this level if you all do this. And then from this level, it's only going to be this amount.
Mm-hmm.
So although you're paying 14 now, you're going to be doing 5. Now, you didn't show FY 28, but that caught my eyes also that we need to talk about. Because you are monitoring the risk burden, you also had whereby we continue, it may go into a risk burden that is high. At that time, council and citizens would understand we need to take a look at trying to raise this rate because we do not want to get into high risk burden. High risk burden is saying we're not putting too much load on our citizens based on their affordability for this city, okay? And understanding what we have to do. So that's why I was able to accept what was presented based with your study. Because the study we had, nobody talked about risk burden. Risk burden to me, you incorporate a system on how it's going to impact on citizens, okay? And that's what citizens need to understand, you know. And I talked about ways that maybe we could do something with the 20%, and that way we don't have to go that high, but we could achieve that amount of money. But after your explanation, I found out that's dumb.
Yes.
Because if we put in money this year to reduce that 20% to 10%, it may help them. But then next year when you add that 5%, they actually going to be getting 15%.
Right. That's right.
To accomplish where we're going. See, that's what citizens need to understand. That's layman terms to let them understand what you have done in this study has taken care of how it's going to impact on them. You're giving us a tool to see. And when we look at that, we're looking at the risk burden being moderate. Ideal is low. But when we got the issues we have, the idea is moderate, knowing we got to do a little bit more, but at the same time, not going here to try to get to where we want to go, but we put a burden on our citizens. So I think that's the thing that the citizens should get out of this, whether they accept it or not. But the fact of the matter, your plan and your recommendation is not based on what we need to do. What you gave us is not based on no Attorney General's lawsuit. What you gave us is something to get us back on track to where we need to be in order to provide the service that citizens need and not be indebted, and let us know we're not putting it all on them. And at the same time, we got a method that if we did get there, this method would tell us, hey, you high, back up. And that's when we should take the appropriate action. So once again, I was very impressed with your presentation. I accept the recommendation because you hit the key things, the key points that I'm interested in. One, are you talking about Port Arthur? That's the first thing. The second thing is, do you have anything to make sure that we keep it what we should for our people, not what they do in the comparing cities. Okay? So thank you very much, Eric.
Okay. I have Councilmember Everfield and then Councilmember Frank. Thank you, Eric. You can continue. I think they may. Councilmember Everfield?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your amazing presentation. I was very impressed when you did share this with us last week or week before last in executive session. Thank you for making it simple, keeping it plain for us. But I do want to also acknowledge this information was shared with us approximately August of last year, when we were instructed that we needed to increase our water rates approximately 15% at that time. And council decided not to do that. It voted not to do it. And that would have been putting us a little bit more, further ahead of the game. Now, because we didn't do that then, we have this approximate 20% increase. I know that some citizens have asked about, well, how much weight is industry holding in this, and how much are they able to assist us with this? Well, industry only gives us approximately like 30% of the total revenue. So we still have a lot of the burden to bear to help get us back on track. So this was not the first time that we heard this. So I am very grateful that council is now putting in place the strategies that we need to do to be able to help rebuild and sustain our water infrastructure. This is a absolute must that we have to do this. And so I'm encouraging council to please, let's move forward with this. Yes, the AG is watching, but we were notified that the AG was watching over a year ago. So I want to encourage us to stay on track with this and take advice that's been given to us from our legal counsel.
Thank you. Councilmember Frank?
I simply want to ditto everything that Councilwoman Everfield just said. She took all of my comments and she stated them succinctly. I do want to thank Dr. Haney and Calvin Matthews and that entire staff, as well as Lynn, all of you, and the city manager as well. You sounded the alarm a year ago. You told us that the cavalry was not coming to save us and that it would take this step. And I am grateful today that the council, whatever it takes, that we now see that this is necessary, that we can provide for our citizens what they deserve. You deserve a city where excrement is not in your yard. You deserve a city where feces is not coming back up into your bathtubs. You deserve a city that meets the needs that you have. And sometimes that means that you have to pay for those things. Those things are needed. Those things are necessary. And so you can't kick the can down the road continually. You have to bite the bullet. You have to make a decision that you're going to take care of people and the needs of people and the needs of our city. And I know that many times one of the things that happens and transpires is that we make decisions because we care about people and we care about senior citizens. And we should. We need to take care of the least of those among us to make sure that they are taken care of. But at the same time, you have to take care of the city. And you've got to make those decisions that are tough sometimes, that might not allow you to sit back at this dais, because people will be upset with you because their water bills have been increased and they're concerned about that. You can't make those decisions. You can't make these decisions based on that. You've got to make the decisions based on what's happening and how it is going to affect our city for those even perhaps who are yet unborn. And so now this generation, individuals in our city now, are going to have to look at this increase. And this increase is here. It's not our decision to do that. We wish that we would not have to do it. But it's mandated now, necessary now. As the mayor did say, it's necessary, because to not do it means that we will have to bear the burdens criminally, and so we have to do this, and we're hoping that all will fare well. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric, thank you so much. We appreciate your presentation. Joe, thank you. But I will say, as I close out this, because I get to speak last, is that I could go beyond last year. I wasn't on council for the last 2 years. I could go way back to 2019 when we had a presentation right before COVID or during COVID, and this same presentation told us that we needed to do something about our infrastructure and that it was failing, and they recommended that through a water study, wastewater study, that we would raise our rates on our citizens. We did it one time. I feel like I failed the citizens because at the time I was on council, and when COVID came, we did not increase the water rates. At least three of those, they had stated 5 increases. We only did 1, and so I feel like I failed as a council person at the time, sitting right here in this seat, that I failed the citizens of Port Arthur. But when COVID came, we couldn't see ourselves charging our citizens for, and I think citizens need to know that this didn't just happen. It has been over a period of time, and so we need to give you the full story. And I did not vote for the second increase because I too was at home like you all were during COVID, and we could not. I couldn't bear seeing the burden of a rate increase during that time, and so we didn't do it for that whole entire year, and we never really came back and addressed that water infrastructure issue. So I blame myself at that point, but I do want that for the record. Eric, thank you. We appreciate it, and we look forward to just getting our city to be better. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you flying back, doing that presentation. You were just here not even a week ago when we all learned the same thing with you. Joe, I don't know if you have any comments, but I appreciate you being here to help us to bear the burden of all of what we have to face as citizens. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. At this time,